This old belt doesn't look too bad, but this does. Hi everyone, and welcome to Drive Chris Capredoni, your source for automotive reviews, analysis, maintenance, and restorations. Please subscribe to our channel, watch the entire video, watch our other videos, and of course, click on notifications to be first to learn about new videos. I'm Chris Capredoni, and in this how-to DIY video, I will explain and demonstrate serpentine belt replacement in a Buick Encore or Chevrolet Cruze with a 1.4-liter turbo, 4-cylinder, Ecotec gasoline engine. This procedure requires a bit more effort since the right side engine mount needs to be removed in order to access the belt. Belts should be periodically inspected for any cracks or damage, as those are telltale signs of a belt that will eventually fail. Over time, modern reinforced EPDM rubber belts may not show signs of cracking, but may stretch very slightly, which will diminish its ability to work at a peak efficiency. Any belt over 5 years old or used for 100,000 miles should be replaced. Let's get over to the Encore and get started. Hi everyone, so today I'll be replacing the serpentine belt, or as other people call it, the accessory belt, on a Buick Encore with a 1.4-liter turbo 4-cylinder Ecotec engine. Now this engine can also be found in the Chevy Cruzes and I think the Chevy Spark as well, but the installation of the Ecotec engine in the Encore model requires a slightly different approach in order to remove the serpentine belt, which is located on this side of the engine block, which is on the passenger side of the vehicle. For starters, what I need to do is I need to remove all of this air intake plumbing, air filter plumbing, the air intake, in order to get access to the serpentine belt. Part of the procedure is the engine mount is in the way. It's hindering you from fully removing the old belt and installing the new one. So some mechanics recommend removing the bracket altogether, as well as the mount. I'm going to show you a little trick today where you don't have to fully remove them in order to slip the belt in and out. I'll show you. So the first step will be that I need to remove all of this. So the first thing to do is remove the mass airflow sensor. And there's this red clip here. You lift it up, and then there's a little black tab here. You press it down, and then it comes off. Put it out of the way. This is very simple. There are two little mounting points. You lift up and you pull it out. Removing this will require me to loosen this O-clamp, and then there's a smaller O-clamp, or an O-clamp down there, which I'll need a stubby screwdriver, and then I'll be able to remove this out. This is only being held in place by two mounting points here and then one below. They're like like a finger size going into a rubber holding spot. So I'm going to get my screwdriver, unloosen these, and then we'll get moving. On the Buick Encore, I'm going to recommend removing the old belt and installing the new belt from below. In order to do that, we need to lift the vehicle up, remove the wheel, remove part of the inner fender housing in order to gain access to it. From above, I've tried before. You really fight too much up there. You can't get enough leverage because there's too many different things in the way. From below, you have full access to it. You just need to slip yourself underneath, and you'll be able to gain the leverage that you need in order to release the tension, slip it off, and then put the new one back on. So I properly secured the vehicle and removed the front passenger wheel to gain access to the belt, which you can see is in this area here. What I need to do is I need to remove part of this inner fender. This clip's missing, so I got a clip there, and I think that's an Allen, a Torx bit, in order to just gain a little bit of space for me to have some leverage with my wrench when I take pressure off of the pulley tensioner, sorry. So I'm going to get a screwdriver, clip these off, get the right Torx bit, and loosen this all up. Now that all the clips have been removed, you can see how this is movable and I can gain access to everything that I need to. I've replaced the pulley tensioner previous. That should be done when you do the serpentine belt. Since I did it last week as a precaution because it was squealing, that would be recommended to do at the same time as the belt. But since I have a new one in place, I don't need to do that, but I highly recommend that. So now that the area here in the tire well has been prepped, the next step for me is to use my floor jack and support the engine, now that I have the car at the proper height, in order to loosen the bolts holding the engine mount to the bracket so that I can gain access to slipping on and off the belt. So I'm going to do that now. So I positioned my floor jack. It's right below the oil pan. There's a plastic cover that's covering it. I determined that it will flex enough without me having to spend the time removing it. So I positioned it. Now I'm going to be just supporting it, the engine, until I'm finished removing the engine mount and then reinstalling it. So this will stay here for the entire process. Okay, now that the engine has been properly supported from the oil pan below with my floor jack, I can move to the next step, which is the fun part. These 3 bolts here are 15mm bolts, and they're the bolts that hold this engine mount to the bracket that's mounted to the side of the engine. Some people remove this entire mount. What I'm recommending to do, and I'll show you, is all I need to do is remove these 3 bolts. That will gain a little bit of a gap below that I can slip the belt through. I will also have be loosening the 3 bolts holding the bracket in place, because there's a space down here that the belt will not slip through and I need that wiggle room. But with respect to removing the engine mount, don't really need to. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove these 3 15mm bolts. So I've just removed the 3 bolts, and I'll demonstrate. Now there's enough of a space for me to fit my finger in between the engine mount and the bracket, which is just enough of a distance for me to slip a belt in and out without having to remove anything else. Like I said before, the bracket below has 3 bolts holding it in place. That will need to be loosened quite a bit in order to get the wiggle room to get the belt through the bracket on the bottom. So the next step now is for me to loosen that bracket. The 3 bolts on that mounting bracket are a 15mm again, and the best way to get them is with an open box wrench. So the one here on this side here is easy to access and loosen. The other one, where is it? It's hard to show, but it's right down in there. The 2 bottom ones are easier to access from below. So I'll be doing those ones from below, but I'll start with the one from the top here. Here's a shot from below. You can see that's the one bolt I loosened from the top. This one here with the wrench attached to it has to be done. And then the other one over there. They all have to be loosened enough to be able to wiggle the belt through it. That's the only way. You could totally remove it, but that's not necessary. As long as you loosen all the bolts quite a bit, you'll be able to gain the wiggle room that you require. So I'm going to remove them, or loosen them, sorry. Okay, so It's time now to release the pressure off of the belt. And I have a 5/8 socket, which is the same as a 15 millimeter. What I'm going to be doing is applying pressure to it like this, like going like this, in order to relieve the pressure. And then I'm going to use my finger to slip the belt off of the alternator. That's the easiest point. So since I don't have a third hand, I'm going to have to take the camera off, but that's what I'll be doing. I'll be releasing the tension and then slipping it off. So I took the pressure off of the belt and slipped it off of the alternator pulley. And then you can see I've fished it off of the pulley tensioner because I had this extra play on the bracket below. Okay. So now the last part, so the last part is to, and I can't really show it, but what I'm going to do is slip the belt. This is really hard to show, but I'm going to be demonstrating that you can slip it out through this space here and then take out the full belt. And again, use the same method to slip it in and down for the new belt. So here's the new belt, and I'm ready to slip it on the same way. So I'm going to go through underneath the bracket and then rotate it 90 degrees and push it down. And there we go. And that will allow me to refish the new belt into position, which I'll do. And I'll show a diagram of how it goes through all the different pulleys. The new belt's been slipped on using the alternator spot point as the final slip-on point. So now it's all on, everything looks good. The next step now is to re-bolt this bracket in place. I took one of the bolts out to give me a little bit more leverage, so that has to be reinstalled and then attached to the engine mount, and then putting all of the air filter housing back in place, and the job is done. The three 15 millimeter bolts have been torqued down to 50 Newton meters, which is 37 pound-feet, plus 60 degrees of rotation. I did my best with the rotation with my my torque wrench. The next step now is to reinstall these three aluminum bolts. By the way, all these bolts probably should be replaced new because they do stretch. I'm just for demonstration purposes reinstalling the same ones, but I will be ordering new bolts to install. That's the tech proper way of doing this. So I'm going to get the bolts and reinstall the engine mount to the bracket. Push it into the two holes here, push in. Locate the hole right down there. There it is. Hook up the mass airflow sensor, lock it in. Install the tubing. I need a stubby flathead to do this one here. And finally, the air intake inserted at the bottom. line up the two clips, and that's it, complete. Thanks for watching this comprehensive DIY tutorial on replacing a serpentine belt on a Buick Encore with a 1.4 liter turbo 4-cylinder Ecotec gasoline engine. The Chevrolet Cruze and Sparks also have the same engine and belt layout. Replace your belt every 5 years or 100,000 miles or 160,000 kilometers, whether it looks cracked or not. Please ensure to properly secure the vehicle and the engine when performing this procedure. Wear proper eye protection when under the vehicle. Please subscribe to our channel, Drive Chris Capredoni, and watch our other informative videos as your source for vehicle reviews, analysis, maintenance, and restorations.